For more than 1,000 years, the walls of Constantinople had stood between empires. They had survived Roman emperors, Persian armies, Arab invasions, crusaders, plagues, and countless wars. But now, in the spring of 1453, the greatest city of the medieval Eastern Mediterranean is surrounded once again. And this time the enemy has brought something different. Cannons. Outside the walls stands a young Ottoman Sultan, barely 21 years old. His name is Mehmed II. Inside the city, the last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, prepares to make his final stand. But Constantinople is only one part of a much larger story. Across Europe, the Renaissance is transforming art, banking, scholarship, and science. In China, the Ming dynasty remains one of the world's greatest powers. In India, powerful kingdoms compete for control of the subcontinent. Across Africa, gold and salt continue to fuel vast trading networks. And thousands of kilometers away, the civilizations of the Americas flourish, completely unaware that Europe is about to enter a new age. 1453 is therefore more than the story of a city falling. It is the story of a world-changing direction. The Byzantine Empire is about to disappear. The Ottoman Empire is about to become a major European power. The ancient trade routes between East and West are about to be transformed, and within decades, European sailors will begin searching for new routes to Asia. The Middle Ages will not end on a single day. But May the 29th, 1453 will become one of the dates historians remember as a symbolic dividing line. For centuries, Constantinople had been known as the Queen of Cities. Now an enormous Ottoman army is preparing to break through its walls, and history is waiting. By 1453, the Byzantine Empire is no longer the mighty Roman Empire that once ruled the Mediterranean. Its territory has been reduced to fragments. And at its heart stands Constantinople. The city is ancient, wealthy, and almost completely surrounded by the Ottoman Empire. Yet its defences remain formidable. The Theodosian walls stretch for kilometres across the western side of the city. 3 layers of fortifications protect the city from armies approaching from Europe. For centuries, these walls were among the world's greatest defences. But there is a problem. There are simply not enough people left to defend them. The city that once contained hundreds of thousands may now have only a fraction of that population. Inside the walls, Greeks, Italians, soldiers, monks, and refugees prepare for battle. Among them are volunteers from Genoa, including the famous commander Giovanni Giustiniani. They know what is coming. They also know what happens if they lose. The Ottoman Sultan has promised to capture Constantinople. And unlike previous Ottoman rulers, Mehmed II possesses something that the Byzantine emperors cannot easily counter: massive artillery. The defenders repair the walls, they collect food, they reinforce gates, priests pray, soldiers sharpen weapons. And ordinary citizens wonder whether they are preparing for another siege, or the final siege. The irony is almost unbearable. The city that had survived for more than 11 centuries is now fighting for its existence with a population smaller than many modern towns. But Constantinople still has one advantage: its walls. And on those walls, a small army prepares to face one of the largest forces of the medieval world. Every stone suddenly mattered. Every gate became a possible doorway for disaster. The defenders knew courage alone could not replace missing soldiers, food, or ammunition. Outside Constantinople stands one of history's most ambitious young rulers. Mehmed II is only 21 years old, but he has already decided that he will accomplish what generations of Ottoman rulers failed to achieve. He will conquer Constantinople. Mehmed is not simply a warrior, he is fascinated by technology, engineering, languages, mathematics, and ancient history. He understands the old Byzantine walls cannot be defeated easily with swords. So he decides to change the rules. He orders enormous cannons to be constructed. The most famous is the massive bombard associated with Hungarian engineer Orban. Its scale is extraordinary. Teams of oxen are required to transport it. When it fires, the sound echoes across the countryside. The defenders hear something new. The future has arrived outside their walls. Mehmed also builds a fortress on the Bosphorus to control naval movement. Then he gathers an army, janissaries, cavalry, infantry, engineers, sailors, artillery crews. Thousands of soldiers surround Constantinople. But Mehmed knows that even the largest army cannot simply walk through those walls. So he plans to attack from the sea. And when the Byzantine defenders block the entrance to the Golden Horn with a massive chain, Mehmed finds another solution. He orders Ottoman ships to be transported over land. Yes, ships, dragged across a hillside. The defenders wake up and discover Ottoman vessels appearing where ships should not be. It is one of the strangest military operations of the Middle Ages. And it tells the defenders something terrifying. This young sultan is willing to do almost anything to win. Across the Ottoman camp, soldiers watch the engineers work. For Mehmed, this was not merely another campaign. It was the moment his reputation would be decided. The siege has lasted for weeks, the walls are damaged, the defenders are exhausted, food is running low, and still Constantinople refuses to surrender. Then comes the night of May 28th, 1453. Inside Hagia Sophia, thousands gather for what will become the final Christian service of the Byzantine Empire. Emperor Constantine XI attends. Greeks, Italians, soldiers, civilians. For one final night, religious divisions are forgotten. Everyone knows what tomorrow may bring. Before dawn on May the 29th, Ottoman artillery begins pounding the walls. Then the attack starts. Wave after wave of Ottoman soldiers rush toward the defences. The first attacks fail. The second attacks fail. The defenders continue fighting. Then the janissaries advance. At a critical moment, Giovanni Giustiniani is seriously wounded and leaves the battlefield. The defenders panic, and then disaster. An Ottoman force discovers an open gate or a small entrance known as the Kirka Porta. Whether this gate truly caused the breakthrough remains debated, but soon Ottoman soldiers are inside the city. The walls collapse into chaos. Constantine XI removes his imperial insignia. He reportedly refuses to flee. Instead, the last Byzantine emperor rides toward the fighting and disappears. We do not know exactly how he died, but the empire he represented ends with him. Mehmed II enters Constantinople. He rides toward Hagia Sophia. The greatest city of the medieval Eastern Roman world has fallen. After more than 1,000 years, the Byzantine Empire is gone, and the Ottoman Empire has entered a new age. Smoke covered the battlements, bells rang through the streets. Families ran toward churches while soldiers searched for weapons. The final defense had become a desperate struggle for every street. The city had reached its final hour. No reinforcements were coming. No rescue fleet appeared. News of Constantinople's fall spreads rapidly across Europe. For Christian Europe, the shock is enormous. The greatest Christian city of the East has fallen. But history rarely moves in straight lines. The fall of Constantinople does not destroy civilization. Instead, it helps accelerate changes already underway. Greek scholars and intellectuals leave the collapsing Byzantine world and travel westward, particularly to Italy. They bring manuscripts, ancient Greek texts, philosophy, science, literature, knowledge preserved for generations. Meanwhile, Italian cities are already experiencing a cultural explosion. In Florence, artists and architects are transforming the city. Brunelleschi's Great Dome dominates the skyline. Painters experiment with perspective. Sculptors study the human body. Bankers finance artists, churches and rulers. The Renaissance is becoming impossible to ignore. And then there is another consequence. The Ottoman conquest changes the political geography of trade between Europe and Asia. European merchants still want Asian spices, silk and luxury goods. But access is now increasingly influenced by Ottoman power. This creates a dangerous question. Can Europe find another route to the east? Portuguese sailors are already exploring the African coast, and in the decades ahead, European ships will venture farther into the Atlantic than ever before. The fall of Constantinople therefore closes one chapter, while quietly opening another. And perhaps the strangest irony is this: the city that many Europeans feared would destroy the Christian world also helped send ancient knowledge westward, fueling the intellectual movement that would transform Europe. History had a strange sense of humour. Merchants watched these changes carefully. A safer route could mean a fortune. A blocked route could ruin a family. Geography was becoming economics, and economics was becoming strategy. And Europe was beginning to understand that knowledge itself could become a form of power. While Europe is reacting to Constantinople, most of the world is following its own extraordinary paths. In China, the Ming dynasty remains one of the most sophisticated states on earth. But the age of enormous treasure fleets has largely passed. Zheng He's final voyage ended years earlier. China is turning inward. The imperial government concentrates more heavily on defending its northern frontier and managing the enormous empire from Beijing. Far to the west, the Ottoman Empire is becoming a bridge between continents. Its territory connects Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Trade continues, caravans move, merchants adapt, and Ottoman Constantinople begins a new chapter. In India, the powerful Vijayanagara Empire dominates much of southern India. Its capital is enormous, wealthy, and filled with temples, markets, merchants, and warriors. Across Africa, the great trans-Saharan trade continues. Gold moves north, salt moves south. Cities such as Timbuktu remain important centers of commerce and Islamic scholarship. And in the Americas, civilizations are thriving independently of all these events. The Aztec Empire is expanding around Tenochtitlan. In the Andes, the Inca Empire is rapidly becoming a major regional power under Pachacuti. None of these civilizations knows that Europe is approaching a period of extraordinary overseas expansion, and none can imagine what will happen when these worlds eventually collide. The fall of one city in 1453 is therefore not the end of the world. It is the beginning of a world that will become increasingly connected. Meanwhile, ordinary merchants cared less about imperial maps than prices, safe roads, reliable ships, and profitable markets. Empires could change borders, but commerce had a remarkable habit of adapting. By the end of 1453, something fundamental has changed. The medieval world has not suddenly vanished. Kings still fight, empires still rise and fall, merchants still argue over prices, farmers still worry about harvests, ordinary people still live lives far removed from emperors and battles. But beneath the surface, history is accelerating. The Ottoman Empire now controls Constantinople. The Byzantine Empire has vanished. Renaissance Italy is flourishing. Portugal is exploring the Atlantic and African coast. China remains powerful but has turned away from its great maritime expeditions. India and Africa remain connected through trade. And in the Americas, civilizations continue developing completely independently. The world's civilizations are still separated by enormous oceans, but those oceans are about to become highways. Within a generation, Portuguese sailors will reach farther down Africa, then around the Cape, then toward India. Eventually, European ships will cross oceans that medieval Europeans barely understood. The consequences will be enormous. Trade will explode, empires will expand, cultures will collide. New foods, animals, technologies, diseases, and ideas will cross continents. And millions of people will experience changes they never asked for. The age of exploration will bring discovery, but it will also bring conquest, slavery, disease, and enormous human suffering. That is why 1453 is such an important turning point. It is not simply the year Constantinople fell. It is the moment when several different historical currents begin converging. The old world still lives, but a new world is approaching. And somewhere beyond the horizon, ships are already preparing to sail. The people living through these changes could not see the future. They simply saw ships, markets, rumours, and unfamiliar goods appearing along old routes. They could not know that separate worlds were moving toward an unprecedented encounter. For more than 5 decades, our journey has followed a world in transformation. In 1398, Timur stood at the height of his power. In 1402, the Battle of Ankara shattered Ottoman ambitions and gave Constantinople another half-century of life. In 1405, Zheng He's fleet carried Ming China across the Indian Ocean. In 1415, England won at Agincourt, while Portugal captured Ceuta and opened a new gateway toward Africa. In 1429, a teenage girl named Joan of Arc transformed the fortunes of France. And now in 1453, Constantinople has fallen. One empire disappears, another rises. But perhaps the greatest change is still ahead. The world is becoming connected in ways earlier generations could scarcely imagine. Trade routes will expand. Ships will cross unknown waters. Old civilizations will encounter new ones. And history will become global in a way it has never been before. The walls of Constantinople have fallen, but they have not ended history. They have opened the next chapter. The medieval world is fading. The Renaissance is rising. The oceans are calling, and the future is waiting beyond the horizon.